All right, welcome. Welcome, Season 2, Episode 5 here of the Randy Cross Podcast, and that catchy little name. Joining us today, interview-wise, is going to be my colleague at CBS Sports, Adam Zucker. Adam is an AP voter, hosts that show, the SEC Today, hosts Inside College Football on Tuesday nights on CBS Sports Network. So he's around college football a lot, and this will be a college football, again, a heavy show. So we'll have a nice little talk. We'll also, for those of you interested in the sport of disc golf, we'll have a little disc golf for you at the end of Adam's interview. We'll have our usual sports. Got a Wahmbulance, a little strange Wahmbulance, but a Wahmbulance, and Feel Good. And Feel Good is one you don't want to miss. All right? So let's get going, and we're going to start with Adam Zucker of CBS Sports. All right, here we go for the interview. And as promised, we're going to be talking here to Adam Zucker, who's the host of the SEC Today and the host of Inside College Football with me on Tuesday nights. And sort of the man about town when it comes to college football and CBS. He's got all the cool jobs. Adam, welcome.
Hey, man, coolest job is Tuesday nights with you and the gang hanging out for 2 hours, man.
Hey, how was Saturday? It looked like you guys were going to get a football game there for a little while with Mississippi State and LSU.
Yes. Every week we hope we can get a game that carries us toward the final possession, and oftentimes it's over before the final possession of the first half. But no, it was good for a while. Mississippi State's red zone defense looked pretty good. LSU scores on a lot of big plays, and they were on drives for the early portion of the game, and Miss State was able to hold them to some field goals and then get a touchdown with Garrett Schrader running that offense. I think that offense looked pretty good compared to how it had looked, even though they only scored 13 points. But then, man, final 5 minutes of the half, LSU scored twice, and then early on in the third quarter, they scored again. So they've got so many guys. Racy McMath is another guy scoring for them, but Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. So before we could really, even enjoy our traditional fried food fiesta that comes after halftime, it was 36-7, and suddenly it was just, whoa, all right, well, what else is close right now?
Yeah, well, the one thing that bears repeating about LSU is something that a lot of us have said. We've said it on Inside College Football for several seasons. LSU has been supremely talented, especially at the skill positions. But the one skill position they just haven't had a guy is at quarterback. And now they get Joe Burrow. He transfers in from Ohio State last year. First half of the season last year looks kind of rough. Looks like it's same old LSU. And then, man, since about the last month, 5 weeks or so of the season of 2018 and all of this year, this guy's been unbelievable. How good can he be? How dangerous can he be?
I mean, look, he looks like a Heisman Trophy winner potentially at this moment, and what amazes me, and you could speak to this better, is just how quickly it's all worked out. Where they brought in Joe Brady from the Saints, a guy who ironically had worked for Joe Moorhead at Penn State as a graduate assistant, and had played college football at William and Mary, but he comes in from the Saints and brings their offense. And sending out all these receivers and just going for one-on-one matchups, and not, it's not the Alabama slants, it's not the Oklahoma wide open CeeDee Lamb stuff all the time. It's just putting it. It's almost like, to put it in my terms, throwing that frisbee. Where the guy is best angled to be to get it. So he'll just zip it right over the defender to the shoulder that works, and they're the second highest scoring offense in the country as a result, just a blip behind Oklahoma now after Saturday's action. And it's happened so fast. And that's what's amazing. And our buddy Rick Neuheisel was not only giving Joe Brady a lot of credit, but saying that he's made Joe Burrow look like the next Tom Brady. So a lot of Joes, a lot of Bradys, and to mess up in my head. But it's amazing. And I love his attitude. He's got a little bit of that cockiness from the Baker Mayfield world without the flag planting, without like the full on without inspiring the other team to get revenge, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's great. And let's talk a little bit about quarterbacks. Now, LSU's got one. There's a few others that have one. Justin Fields at Ohio State, and they spanked Northwestern sort of in front of the whole country Friday night.
Yeah, and what's amazing is how quickly these guys. It's no wonder that freshmen in college expect to start, expect to succeed, and now know that they can if things aren't going their way. So, like you said, Joe Burrow transferred. Justin Fields, amidst all the, I think a situation that could have been maybe more drama filled, ends up leaving for Ohio State. I know it was dramatic locally. And of course, Jalen Hurts goes to Oklahoma, and he looks, he looks a little different now, but he's having huge numbers too. So yeah, I mean, we're spoiled with quarterbacks right now, and there's a lot of good ones out there too. Like Justin Herbert is something for Oregon, and Sam Howell does good stuff. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of guys out there. Of course, there's Tua, Jamie Newman at Wake Forest stepping in. So there's a lot of guys. I mean, Cole McDonald throws some picks, but they can sling it around. And of course, Anthony Gordon to Washington State. So other than Jonathan Taylor, who hit a plateau, but also had a really costly fumble the other day. It's a quarterback's world, man. But you know that.
How bad was that loss of Wisconsin? Not only losing the way they did, but to have it go down. Is it worse? How much worse is it than Georgia losing at home to an unranked South Carolina?
I was thinking about it, and I think it's actually worse than I realized on Saturday when I was doing the updates and doing the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because if not for South Carolina's season opening loss to North Carolina, who ended up almost beating Clemson, right?
Yeah.
And obviously they lost their overtime game. They're kind of, they'll play to the level of their opponent type of team. We came into this season thinking with Jake Bentley, which is not the reason now, but that with Jake Bentley, this was Will Muschamp's best South Carolina team. They got all these studs on defense, huge cornerbacks. So when they beat Georgia and won the turnover battle 3-0, including a pick six, and Jake Fromm had one of the balls go right off his receiver's hands for that costly interception late in the game. It was still a surprise. It was still a shock, but not nearly what this was. I mean, Illinois showed some life against Michigan, but they were over 30-point underdogs at home. And it takes a lot for me to start referencing point spreads, Randy. And so,
yeah, absolutely.
So, and Wisconsin was up. I mean, when you're Wisconsin and you're up 2 touchdowns, 13 points to me is 2 touchdowns, right? So that's Wisconsin. It's not a flashy team. It's like a steamroller. Steamrollers go right over potholes.
Yeah, you run the ball and you basically take away all hope with first downs and clock.
And instead, Jonathan Taylor fumbles, so Illinois gets the ball and gets points on the board. And then late, 3rd and 5, Alex Cohen throws an interception, and it was pretty much just slightly above the defender's head. It was like, here you go, like didn't see him. And so then Illinois gets it, and Wisconsin's defense that had 4 shutouts on the year allows enough of a drive to set up that field goal by a kid, barely knew what football was growing up. So it's just unbelievable, and changes. I think that knocks off a playoff team. A playoff potential team right there.
Now, we obviously have a lot of big matchups coming up before the first playoff poll comes out, which is Tuesday, November 5th. And specifically, there's what'll be basically 1 versus 2, Alabama and LSU, on the 3rd of November. No, the 2nd of November on Saturday. On CBS, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes. But are we going to see Clemson keep not dropping necessarily, but keep getting discounted? I mean, I find it interesting that in the rankings, Ohio State is now firmly at 4, but Clemson is a team that, what are they? Besides undefeated and having won 23 in a row?
Yeah, well, it kind of reminds me of that Florida State team when they were the defending national champs, and they are having comebacks and close games and all that stuff. Clemson looks better than that team did, even though that team, they weren't going to get kept out of the playoff, but there was a lot of that chatter, and they ended up the 4 slot. and then it just all went right into the dumpster against Oregon with Jameis Winston having backward passes and all that stuff in the semifinal. I just think that it's two things. Look, I mean, we basically saw Clemson 2 yards away from losing to North Carolina. Like, it was about to happen. And then their schedule has been greatly discounted because of the ACC really kind of sinking down a bit. And Louisville was a good challenge for a while. And I think, we try. I'm an AP voter, and Ohio State's actually my number one team right now. They just look the most complete all season. But I think there's a lot of teams making in-season improvements. And it's not like I'm going to go on any show and tell you why I think Ohio State is so much better than who I have at 2, 3, 4, or 5. It's not like that. But Trevor Lawrence hasn't looked as good. He's already doubled his interception total. ETN's a machine, but their defense doesn't look as good. Their O-line doesn't look as good as last year's team, and that's for good reason because they got the whole D-line went first round in the NFL draft.
Yeah, much. That'll do it to you.
Yeah, that'll bite you. And I think it's just that they're not going to have any marquee wins as the season unfolds. But if they win all their games, they're fine. Because, as time goes on, you get this Ohio State-Wisconsin game, you get Ohio State-Penn State to figure that out. And like you said, we get this march of SEC, delineators at least, like Auburn-LSU. The winner of that one has a much bigger game against Alabama come November. Florida-Georgia comes our way the following week. That's gonna have a lot to say about things. And if Georgia wins, then the East champ's gonna have to win out. We'll see about that. So there's all those games. Georgia, Auburn still to come. If Georgia can win out, I think they have a good shot because of who they'll beat along the way. So as the carnage unfolds, I think Clemson will rise back up the rankings and be fine as long as they don't drop one.
Yeah, when it comes to being kind of objective, but just doing things in the moment, and we do rankings every week on Inside College Football. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure if anybody's got Clemson in the top 4. There's LSU, there's Alabama, there's Ohio State, there's Oklahoma, a lot of red. But generally speaking, Clemson's usually not in there. But yeah, it sounds like you agree with me. When that first poll comes out, you're not going to leave a team that hadn't even been basically challenged that much this year and has got that kind of winning streak going.
Yeah, they got the big winning streak. It feels like we've been given a mission to not judge based on the year before and not judge, what you expect to let that infuse into your rankings. So if I'm remembering last Tuesday's show, I think maybe one of the 4 of you had Clemson in the top 4. And that's because of the close game against North Carolina and maybe not looking like world beaters all the time. But they had a lot of close games last year along the way and then just peaked at the right time, and Trevor Lawrence is just putting it up there for T. Higgins and Justin Ross to grab it, which is actually how one of their late touchdowns went. It reminded me of the game against Notre Dame, the game against Alabama in the playoffs. So, if Oklahoma runs the table, they're fine. Ohio State, but it's going to be the SEC that ends up having to knock itself out with Ohio State, Penn State, a big one, coming up if the Buckeyes win this one here. So, yeah, no, I'll be interested to see what the playoff committee does because they got to mind their bylaws. They got to mind their criteria.
Yeah. Well, the great thing about this whole thing, especially the next 6 weeks or so, is with all the cross playing, with Georgia, Florida, you mentioned, everybody's got those kind of games all over the country. LSU, Alabama on November 2nd on CBS, by the way. It's going to take care of itself. The complaining won't, but, the games themselves, the teams themselves, do you expect an undefeated? How many undefeated do you think there'll be by the time we get to the conference championships?
By the time we get to the conference championships, so I would expect, so the winner, if you have LSU beating Auburn this weekend, which, they're actually favored by almost 2 touchdowns, unbelievably, although we saw what point spreads will get you this past weekend.
Yeah.
So the winner of Bama LSU, and I know Bama would still have to go to Auburn if they beat LSU, which is a big if right now because you don't know with Tua's high ankle sprain, how that's going to go and if they can stop LSU. So the winner of that game, I would expect Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma, and yeah, if I have Oklahoma beating Baylor, we're good. So I'd say those four. And I know Minnesota's undefeated, and I don't know that SMU ends up running the table. App State might be undefeated, but as far as the playoff itself goes, those teams, I'm going to say those four.
Okay. Okay. So there's still hope for massive hue and cry and wailing and gnashing of teeth that we should expand the playoff to 8.
Oh yeah. Oh, there will always be that. I mean, some years it really works out. I thought last year it kind of did. Georgia was a contender, but 2 losses that'll do you in, and Oklahoma, they earned their spot. They had their early loss. They avenged it in their conference championship game. So I was okay with 4. I love the college football regular season because it makes what we do so much more important every week.
It matters.
It matters, man. It's not like I love college basketball, but Duke can lose a couple. Duke can lose 5 times, and it's not going to impact maybe even their 1 seed. And basketball's fun. College basketball regular seasons was like the highlight of my time at Syracuse. I mean, we had some good football teams too, but doing play-by-play courtside and John Wallace and a big tournament run, those are great times. But it's the tournament that really brings it out, and that's what people are, really tune in for. So, it's fun to watch a guy like Zion Williamson develop right before your eyes, which is what people love about college sports in general. But the regular season, I think to me, it's the best regular season in sports as far as the importance of every game.
Cool. Hey, now let's move on to some serious stuff here. Let's talk a little disc golf. Now, I've got the top 10 rated disc golf courses in America. Got a list here that we're going to put up. Okay?
You did prep for this.
I did. Now, some interesting things to me, I sort of assume with your sport, and you do play it quite a bit, that it'd be fair weather states as far as, southern, western, where there would be so many, just great courses. And my producer prints off this list, and I'm sitting here going, what? Top 3 courses in the country are in Michigan?
Oh, Shelby? Flip City?
Yeah, Flip City, number 1.
That's on my bucket list, man. I got to get there.
Bluegill Disc Golf Course.
Where's that?
In Wayland, Michigan.
Oh.
And Kensington Metro Park. Tobohagen Course in Milford, Michigan. But what delineates a course that may be around the corner from where you live? And it may be a great course from a course that's somewhere, from Flip City. Is it the fact that maybe it's laid out specifically just for disc golf with all the challenges and whatnot it may have?
Well, the top courses are definitely just for disc golf, although they just had the World Championships in Peoria over the summer, and that was actually on a ball golf course where they worked disc golf into like the tree area between all the fairways of the ball golf course. So it can be done and still host an elite spot. I would say things that would make a disc golf course highly rated were that, you don't have like random trees penalizing good shots. So believe me, there are holes where you've got to get the disc in a 4-foot horizontal between trees to catch the fairway and carry that fairway through several times over to carry that tunnel toward the basket. Tee pads need to be, can't be tripping over your feet in the tee pad if you're taking a running start. Markings are huge. How's it maintained? And that can change town to town because some of these courses are in county parks, state parks, and if they're already out there mowing the lawn, you're pretty much maintained. Other places require that a local group, maintains the course really well. Are the baskets the nice ones, the nice new baskets? That matters. Signage to get you from one hole to another.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've brought my discs with me on the road for work, and I get done with one hole, and I don't know where I'm supposed to go next. So, that'd be a factor. And, my favorite course I've ever played is up in northern Vermont. So as far as fair weather goes, I've never had a bad weather day there. And so it's nice and lush.
Yeah.
Some of the courses in the South and California, Southern California, kind of dry and, the disc hits the dirt and starts rolling down the hill.
Hey, well, come early December when you're down here in Atlanta for the SEC championship with the SEC Today. Number 5 on this list is a course called Flyboy Aviation. It's in Whitesburg, Georgia. Now, I've never been to Whitesburg, Georgia, but it's number 5 on this list.
Where's Carrollton, Georgia? Because there's a course called Hobbs Farm Park I've heard about. Too.
Okay, that's fairly close. It's within about a half-hour drive on a good day.
Oh, that is a good day. That's good because I got that drive to make from Atlanta to Charlotte the Sunday after the SEC championship game. Anyway,
the Nagurski Awards
for the Nagurski, man, for the real player of the year in college football.
Well, now the other thing on my list here that I noticed, that Carrollton course, by the way, Hobbs Farm is on the list. It's number 10. There aren't any New Jersey courses on here. What's up? What are you practicing in the scrubs or what?
New Jersey was a little late to the party. As you know, we are the most population dense state in the country. At least at last check, we were. So I first started playing about 20 years ago, and at that time there were maybe 1,500 courses in the country, and now there's 5,000. And New Jersey has definitely experienced more than a tripling. I would say it's been like a quintupling. So there's actually a course about 30 minutes away from me on land that used to be owned by an old psychiatric hospital, which makes it even creepier. But it's really cool wooded course. There's a meadow, and that one's got some really good ratings.
Oh, I've heard of Crazy Trails.
So there's that one, and then there's an old Rockefeller estate where Nelson Rockefeller had a 9-hole ball golf course, and it was like a private place. Wasn't one of those Hudson River Valley gardens and all that stuff. It was just serious about regular golf. Donated the whole land to Ocean County, New Jersey. They used it as a police barracks, ball fields, tennis courts, and then in the last decade, they've put in a gorgeous 18-hole disc golf course. I actually came out of semi-retirement to play in a tournament there over the summer, and it did not go well. Total downpour for the second round.
Oof.
But I think my score was actually better than in my first round. And so we're catching up. We got some good ones. We're getting there.
That's great. Hey, Adam, really want to thank you for joining me. It's fantastic. Hopefully folks out there learned a little bit about disc golf. It's a growing sport. And just don't forget, when you see the SEC Today and Inside College Football, Adam just works to support his disc golf habit.
That's true, man. I got my ace in Perkerson Park in Atlanta last year, so I hope I just stayed out of the Wahmbulance today, Randy.
Yeah, you will. Thanks, Adam.
All
Appreciate it.
Good.
All right. Bye-bye. Well, so now you got a little smarter about college football and disc golf courses, how they're set up. We're just here to serve. We're just here for information. All right. Thank you very much. I enjoyed that. Now let's take a look at the world of sports, specifically college football from this last weekend. All righty. A lot of big games this last weekend. And we're moving towards the playoffs, as we discussed in the rankings of the playoffs, as we discussed with Adam Zucker. And I'm going to start with my first score. It was a game on Friday night for a lot of reasons. One, it was kind of the first big game of the weekend. And two, it was Ohio State and Northwestern. And Ohio State is, I believe, the best team in the country right now. If this was the playoff ranking, in all good conscience, which has nothing to do with the rankings, you'd have to put Ohio State number 1. So let's keep track of that in a couple weeks and see if that holds up. Second score of the week is a team that right now people consider the best team in the country, Alabama. They beat Tennessee, not quite a blowout, and they did lose their quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. Is going to have that ankle surgery, that high ankle surgery where they put the screw in and tighten up the bones in your lower leg. I know it sounds disgusting, But it really speeds up the process as far as healing from a high ankle sprain. And allegedly, he will be back for Alabama's game on November 2nd on CBS, as I've mentioned like 3 or 4 times already, about 3:30 in the afternoon, November 2nd. Fantastic meeting, and easily the best early season, mid-season 2019 game of the year. The third score is the aforementioned LSU, who played Mississippi State pretty tight early, as Adam Zucker mentioned. But having Joe Burrow has been a huge advantage for LSU. The coordinator, Joe Brady, has made another world of difference to this football team. So LSU, in my mind, is for real. Okay, now next up is a team with another transfer. Like Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts transferred from Alabama, and Oklahoma is all the better for it. They blew out West Virginia 52-14. This guy keeps putting up amazing numbers. They look really, really good. And they'll be challenged here eventually, but it may not be for a little while more unless they just have a total no-show kind of effort on their hands. All right, next up on the scores is a team that had a no-show effort, had that one you just don't want. Not totally unlike Georgia losing to unranked South Carolina, as I mentioned to Adam Zucker. Illinois wins a late game, field goal, wins that game, I should say, over Wisconsin. So Wisconsin will tell you they're still kind of in it. A loss like this and some of the games they have down the road, not likely at all. So that kind of eliminates them. Next on the score parade for us is Penn State taking out Michigan. Michigan put up a good fight. Jim Harbaugh, and rightfully so for what they haven't done. I mean, what was the stat last week? 0-8 now against ranked opponents. Just crazy. When that team's an underdog, they're an underdog. Because generally speaking, if Michigan's not supposed to win right now under Harbaugh, they just flat don't. And that's not good. All right, next up on our score parade is Florida Gators in South Carolina. This was a pretty good game for a while. I caught part of this. But Florida and that defense, in the end, were the difference. So Florida takes out South Carolina and keeps their record fairly good with only one loss, setting up a game in a couple more weeks when they face Georgia down in Jacksonville. And next up on our scoreboard is Georgia and University of Kentucky. I can tell you a quick story. I got to the hotel in Baltimore where I stayed after I did the Navy game last week, sat down to get something to eat, looked up, and I saw 0-0. And I went, good. I got here just at the beginning of the game. And I looked in the corner of the screen, and it said third quarter. So into the third quarter, this was 0-0. Then Georgia kind of, wiped off their brow from that heavy rain all night and took Kentucky out. But Georgia's good. How good are they? We're going to find out against Florida, and we're definitely going to find out a little bit later when they take on Auburn. All right, next up from the scores over the weekend, which was pretty fun, is my MVP of the week, and that's Shane Buechele. Shane Buechele from SMU. Look at those stats. 30 of 53, 457 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Man. And SMU, by the way, is 7-0. They are undefeated, and in the American Conference, they're the highest-ranked team in the group of 5. So congratulations to them, and congratulations to Shane Buechele. All right, that'll do it for sports. That'll do it for college football. Want to move now into Wahmbulance.
You better grab your blankie and just squeeze it real tight. These people need to get a real life.
Ah, yes. We have an Wahmbulance for you. It involves climate change, specifically climate change protesters. Doesn't involve some kid named Greta. But down in Australia, outside of Sydney, they decided they were going to make a statement. And trust me, that makes a statement. And we even have video. How cool is that? You have video instead of just pictures of somebody sticking their head in the sand. These holes they stick their head in, by the way, are lined with plastic bags, which last time I checked are made out of petroleum products, which is also not good for the environment. Well, at least not quite as bad as cow farts. But I digress. All right, check this video out. Wow. If this was in America, you could count all the student debt up with all the intelligence going to waste, sticking your head in the sand. Yeah, well, I always thought that was a bad thing. But, you know, it's a funny argument, but some things just aren't funny. And this from a fairly good authority, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, also known as by their acronym NASA, admits that climate change occurs because of changes in the Earth's solar orbit and not because of SUVs and fossil fuels. But nobody makes money off of that theory. But everybody involved, it seems, makes money off this climate change thing. But that's enough out of that. Let's all put our head in the sand for a few minutes. And by the time we get it out, I've got a great feel-good story for you.
This is the good news. This is the good news.
Yeah, this story is pretty amazing. I came across it. It was on Twitter on the CBS News account, and it's about a young lady with Down syndrome who has made it a mission of hers to educate people who are about to have Down syndrome babies, or actually in the hospital having Down syndrome babies. And the whole theme of what she does is she's got a nonprofit organized on Long Island outside of New York, and they deliver baskets to the families full of educational stuff, congratulatory type things as far as the baby goes. What an amazing young lady. Let's run things here for her. What a great story. Hope you agree. You know, if you want to make a difference in the world, we need more Brittany's, and we need less people shoving their heads in the sand. But maybe that's just me. All right. Want to remind you, social media-wise and website-wise, where to find this podcast and forward the link so people can enjoy it too. randycross.com, @rcrosspodcast. All those different spaces, the Grueling Truth, Barn Burner. It's really appreciate all the people that carry this podcast. It's been a fun project and a little bit of a passion of mine and everybody here. But want to thank you so much for watching, and let's have a little new football happy trails. Oomph.